This is Alex Mercer, reporting from station 7.400 megahertz. I've spent most of the night staring at the receivers, watching the signals vanish one after another. Channels I've monitored for years, military bands, aviation traffic, digital HF links, all began going dark last night. At first, I thought it was a solar event, but the ionosphere didn't flare. Everything just stopped. I realigned the antenna, ran diagnostics, checked for interference. Nothing. The silence was real. Then I picked up a data burst out of the Pacific, encrypted, staggered, routed through what looked like a fallback satellite. I couldn't fully decode it, but its destination was clear. Barksdale, Offutt, and Whiteman, three of the main U.S. nuclear command bases. The payload was massive, and it didn't loop. That's how I knew it wasn't an exercise. Exercises always repeat. A short while later, I heard aircraft overhead. Low altitude, no transponders, hugging terrain. Not civilian, not cargo. Just a few seconds of roaring engines, and they were gone. Through the binoculars, I saw them clear the western tree line, heading south-southwest. Wide wings, long bodies, too big for fighters. Probably B-52s. That was when I knew. Something had changed. I cut the power, sat in the dim red light of the control panel, and waited. Then came the first confirmation. A ham operator out of Sitka broke through with a scattered signal. He said the western horizon lit up like dawn. Bright, rising, hot. Not a meteor, not an explosion. He swore he saw the curvature of the blast before his transmission cut mid-word. Minutes later, another operator from Taipei confirmed what I already feared. Hypersonic launches detected off China's eastern coast. Targets: Guam, Okinawa, the Philippine Sea, and Diego Garcia. 5 strategic U.S. military positions hit in the opening strike. No warning, no declaration. It was China, and they struck first. You have to understand, this wasn't about oil or Taiwan or some tired line about pride. This war began with economics, cyber infrastructure, and scarcity. Back in 2028, China completed its foothold in Central Africa, locking down every major rare earth mine between Ethiopia and Zambia. Western analysts shrugged. The public didn't care. But that was the moment we lost our tech dominance. We had the patents, the companies, the marketing. But they had the minerals. And they squeezed. In 2029, Beijing flooded the market with synthetic neodymium at half the cost of American refinement, bankrupting 6 major producers in under 3 months. The markets crashed. Washington responded with sanctions and tariffs. But it was too late. Our microchip independence was gone. When Taiwan fell soon after, the last non-mainland chip source was lost. That's when the Pentagon ramped up its black site programs, trying to mass-produce semiconductors in Arizona and New Mexico. But Chinese infiltration had already sunk deep. The cyber attack on the Treasury's real-time payment systems in 2031 was their test run. People think nuclear war happens in a day. It doesn't. It creeps in. By the time you notice, the rot's already in your lungs. The retaliation order came through the fallback channel. Just 3 words. Alpha Green, confirmed. After that, silence. That was all it took. We fired back. Not from land silos. They'd been cut in half after the 2030 budget collapse. But from sea. The submarines, the boomers. Silent and patient. 4 Ohio-class launches from the Philippine Basin, 12 MV warheads each. Reports confirmed hits on Guangzhou, Shanghai, Qingdao, and near Beijing. Casualty estimates already top 200 million. The number doesn't even feel real. Signal strength began dropping again. Not from interference, but from the atmosphere itself. The upper layers were shifting. Auroras flickered, then vanished. The sky felt wrong, disoriented. Contact with Alaska bands failed soon after. Then came the civilian alert. Not by phone, not by EAS. Those systems were gone. It came through a scrambled AM carrier I'd rigged years ago to catch ghost frequencies. The message said, "Strategic deterrence failure confirmed. National strike underway. All civilians advised to shelter in hardened locations. Avoid target zones. Remain off highways. Engage in self-rescue. Broadcast only when secure." I must have read that sentence a dozen times. Strategic deterrence failure. That means the system failed. The doctrine that kept peace for over a century, mutual assured destruction, is gone. Cheyenne Mountains silent. Buckley's presumed destroyed. NORAD East and Raven Rock, nothing. Washington might already be gone. The East Coast bands are dead. Not jammed. Just gone. One operator out of Fort Collins broke through the noise. Jonathan Lee, a civil engineer, said he was in a commuter tunnel northeast of Denver with his family and others. Reported a bright flash in the northern sky. The power dying instantly. The air turning thick. He believed Buckley was hit. Told anyone listening to head for elevation. Stay underground if possible. His voice cracked at the end. I think he had a child with him. I tried to respond, but his signal faded. That was the last voice I heard. I'm not a soldier, not a theorist, just a former systems technician who saw what was coming back in 2025, when we nearly lost the grid during the solar filament scare. I built this cabin for that reason. 8 years of work, EMP hardened, thermally shielded, stocked for isolation, solar and diesel backup, underground air filtration. I built it because I knew one day something would break so badly no one would see it coming. That day is now. If you're still hearing me, listen carefully. If you're near a city, leave. Not tomorrow, now. Radiation spreads fast and early winds are unpredictable. Fallout's already riding the jet stream. If you're within 100 miles of any major metro, even if it hasn't been hit, get to elevation and seal your shelter. If you have potassium iodide, take it. If not, wet a cloth and cover your mouth and nose when you move through open air. Boil all water unless it's from sealed containers. Avoid open lakes and rivers near strike zones. Do not trust rescue broadcasts unless you can verify their origin. Expect false signals, some foreign, some rogue, maybe even automated. The command structure is shattered. Assume you're on your own until proven otherwise. The transmitter runs through a grounded copper cage and is fully shielded from interference. I've got enough stored power to keep it live 12 hours a day for the next year, if I ration carefully. I'll resume broadcasting at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. My next report will cover fallout drift patterns, triangulated survivor signals, and any verified updates from fallback relay stations. If you're hearing this, you are not alone. But the world you remember is gone. We are standing at the beginning of something else, something none of us are ready for. It's now 9:13 in the morning. Outside, the sky has gone gray, despite the forecast calling for clear conditions. I can't tell if it's smoke or upper atmosphere dust from the coastal impacts, but the sunlight has that pale, milky cast to it. Flat, dim, diffuse, nothing sharp. My wind turbine turns slowly. No gusts yet, but the weather station shows the pressure dropping. 2 points in the last hour. I don't like that. Fallout drift tends to ride the back edge of pressure changes. I've spent the last 4 hours scanning for anything beyond static, any trace of a living signal. Managed to catch part of a broadcast out of Canada, what's left of the CBC emergency feed. It didn't sound official, more like a lone technician, maybe in a remote station, reading from a printed sheet. He said Ottawa and Toronto are unresponsive. Halifax took in several thousand refugees from Maine overnight. Vancouver's under martial law. He didn't mention direct impacts, but the tone in his voice made it clear. Vancouver's still on the list. Just not hit yet. There's still no word from the U.S. East Coast. That whole side of the continent might already be silent, either cut from the grid or wiped out by secondary strikes. If Washington is gone, and I suspect it is, that explains the missing federal fallback. Continuity of government has likely failed, and if Raven Rock hasn't lit up its spectrum, it's either buried or destroyed. Before I get into the new maps and fallout drift projections, I want to step back. I want to talk about how we truly got here. Not the headlines of the past year, balloon incidents, naval skirmishes, sanctions, but the quiet sparks that lit this thing beneath our feet. The first signal came in 2026 in Kashmir. India and Pakistan had played brinkmanship for decades, but this time was different. A water dispute escalated after a Chinese-built dam diverted a tributary feeding Pakistan's breadbasket. That alone could have caused unrest, but then 2 Indian patrols vanished. Drone footage surfaced, blurry, low resolution, but enough to show bodies near the river bend. Pakistan denied involvement. India blamed them anyway. China called it a regional misunderstanding. The UN stepped in, but nothing worked. What few noticed was the hidden deployment. By mid-2027, China had rotated 20,000 so-called infrastructure defense units into northern Pakistan, under the Belt and Road Initiative. But they weren't engineers. They were paramilitary, light armor, mobile missile platforms, encrypted comms. Their presence shifted the tactical balance. India countered by deploying AGY missile systems across the Himalayas and expanding its S-band radar coverage. The standoff never erupted into war, but it put every major power on a hair trigger. The next spark came from Africa. Most Americans didn't notice. In 2028, a proxy conflict ignited in the Mineral Triangle between Zambia, the DRC, and Angola. Chinese state-backed firms, protected by private security forces made up of ex-Russian and Sudanese contractors, began forcibly clearing local populations near cobalt and coltan sites. A few UN peacekeepers tried to intervene. That's when the drones appeared. American-built loitering drones, marked as stolen, striking Chinese convoys. The footage flooded Chinese social media before being censored. The public believed it was a U.S. attack. Beijing called it mercenary sabotage, but quietly passed a sweeping internal war powers expansion that same week. Nobody in the West paid attention, but I did. That's when I started recording everything. Then came 2029, the global financial seizure. It began with shipping. China started restricting titanium and rare earth exports. Not outright bans, just delays, new environmental inspections, paperwork slowdowns. It was enough to cripple the supply chain. American manufacturing buckled. Tech markets crashed. AI systems began hallucinating as servers failed and replacements never came. Trust in the digital economy collapsed. Emergency acts were passed, but too late. The breaking point was digital currency decoupling. Without warning, China untethered its coin from the global synthetic basket and began issuing direct credit to participating Belt and Road nations, Brazil, Nigeria, parts of Eastern Europe. The U.S. lost control of the petrodollar almost overnight. Budgets froze, veterans went unpaid, 100,000 reservists were cut loose. That's when the fracture line formed, the one that split the world in two. Russia seized the moment. While the world reeled, they deployed 2 battalions into Lithuania under the banner of Joint Slavic Security Operations. NATO hesitated. Germany had no fuel. France was still crippled by the Seine reactor incident. The UK refused to move without US backing. The Baltics screamed for help, and no one came. So Russia stayed, and the map shifted again. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the Philippines requested missile defense support after China resumed island construction near Scarborough Shoal. U.S. naval forces responded with patrols. Then came the incident. A U.S. P-8 Poseidon surveillance aircraft buzzed by a Chinese fighter, forced to divert. No weapons fired, but it crossed a 50-mile boundary and entered Taiwan's Adiz. Beijing accused Washington of baiting them into war. The headlines flared for 3 days, then went silent. But that's when the deeper moves began. China repositioned its satellite constellations. Surveillance platforms shifted. 4 new low-orbit arrays, Harmony Sky, launched under the guise of weather monitoring. But amateur radio astronomers saw the truth. The beams weren't wide, they were pinpoint, transmitting low VLF frequencies used only by submarines. That's when I started scanning every band. U.S. traffic patterns were changing too. Strategic bombers cycling again from Louisiana and Missouri, carrier groups ghosting their patrol routes, submarines vanishing from public trackers. All of it happened quietly, before a single missile flew. By the time headlines finally declared a crisis in 2032, those of us in the signal world already knew. The war had started long before, not with explosions, but with silences, missing satellites, cut fiber lines, thousands of tiny failures no one paid attention to. And now here we are. The launch came not as chaos, but as precision. China's first strike targeted U.S. military infrastructure across the Pacific: Guam, Diego Garcia, Okinawa, high-value airfields, supply hubs, communication relays. Not cities, not civilians. They wanted to cripple our conventional response. But we didn't wait. We struck back immediately. Our submarines were already in position in the South China Sea. The retaliation followed within minutes. Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, all hit. Not warning strikes, not tactical responses. Strategic-level detonations, multi-warhead platforms, full payloads. 8-figure casualties in the first hour alone. India launched soon after, not at China, not at Pakistan, but at military staging zones in Tibet. That shattered the Himalayan front. Pakistan, convinced it was next, retaliated with strikes on Indian air bases. The Saudis activated their shield grid, probably expecting Israel to react. And Israel always reacts. No one's in control anymore. It's a chain reaction, a cascade. Every nation with a stake is acting unilaterally. There's no coordination, no diplomacy left. The world's militaries are fighting blind, and civilians, they're just trying to survive the day without turning to ash. Let me give you what I have on fallout. The winds are blowing northeast from the Pacific coast. Based on the last high-altitude wind charts I pulled before the strikes, the prevailing currents are carrying radioactive particles from the Guam and Diego Garcia detonations northward toward Alaska, then sweeping east across western Canada and into the northern United States by tomorrow. Montana's western edge might escape the worst of it, but the Dakotas and Minnesota won't. Expect moderate to heavy fallout reaching the Great Lakes within 24 hours if the winds hold steady. If you're anywhere near those regions, seal your vents. Get underground if you can. Don't rely on standard HEPA filters unless they're rated for radioactive particulate. Dust exposure will kill more people than the blasts themselves. Believe me, I can smell it already. The air here has that faint, metallic tang of burned copper. It's subtle, but once you've lived away from cities long enough, you can tell when something's wrong. The trees are silent. No birds since dawn. Just the low whine of the turbine and the soft hum of low-frequency static through the antenna. I haven't eaten yet. I don't feel hungry, I keep cycling through the dials, the bands, afraid I'll miss something important. But most of what I pick up now is just distortion, broken harmonics, shortwave ghosts, fragments of dying stations I'll never trace again. I'll keep listening, I'll keep recording, and I'll keep reporting for as long as I can maintain power. My next update will go out this evening unless something major happens first. If you're alive and hearing this, write down what I tell you, share it, transmit it, pass it on however you can. History isn't going to survive in servers anymore. We are the memory now. The morning's colder than it should be. Not the usual kind of mountain chill. This feels heavier, sharper, as if the air itself forgot how to move. It's late September, but there's a bite that wasn't here yesterday. I stepped outside with a respirator to check the turbine and found ash clinging to the western railing. Not thick, not black, pale gray, fine, drifting. I touched it with a gloved hand. It smeared like powder. I brought a sample inside, ran a radiation check. It's active, low levels, but rising. I'm 60 miles from the nearest city, and even up here the dust is settling. That means we're already inside the outer fallout cone from the Pacific strikes, which also means the winds are moving inland faster than projected. I've updated the fallout maps I started yesterday. Based on the ash accumulation, the primary jet stream is pushing northeast, but a lower band is looping through Idaho and into northern Wyoming. If you're in Billings, Missoula, or Pocatello, you need to seal everything right now. Not tomorrow, not later, now. I picked up new traffic on the emergency bands, shortwave, not satellite. Someone out of Pierre, South Dakota, was rebroadcasting a Red Cross message. It was pre-recorded. A female voice, clipped, mechanical. Mobile aid stations being established along I-90 and I-29 for short-term triage. Please remain in vehicles. Assistance will arrive shortly. I traced the transmission. It was a repeater, not an original broadcast. That means someone is rebroadcasting ghost messages from abandoned protocols. Don't trust those signals, not unless you can verify the source. If you hear offers of open triage points, mobile stations, or drive-through aid centers, assume it's either an old feed or bait. Desperation drives people into traps, and there are plenty waiting to exploit it. Food supply chains are collapsing, faster than even I expected. This was always going to be the first major failure. I've been monitoring the VHF trucking frequencies. The chatter is chaos. Most long-haul fleets shut down after the first alerts. Some drivers turned back home. Others followed dispatch instructions towards secure zones that likely don't exist anymore. One man out of Flagstaff was looping a broadcast about empty distribution centers. Said 2 major warehouses were looted and burned after local police abandoned their posts. You need to understand something about modern logistics. Our cities only have about 72 hours of food. Less if panic clears the shelves. When trucks stop, civilization stops. There's no warehouse fallback, no deep reserves. Just-in-time delivery was always fragile. The second it stopped being on time, the whole system cracked. I heard a woman's voice too, probably mid-30s, broadcasting from a truck stop near Cheyenne. She said people were waving signs that read "Safe Exchange" and "Share Supplies." When drivers pulled in, they were mobbed. Some didn't make it out. She made it onto a back road, switched to her own rig's CB antenna. Her last words before the signal faded were, "I'm not stopping again. I'm heading west and staying moving until I'm out of fuel or breath." Then, static. The civilian infrastructure isn't just damaged. It's gone. What remains are scavengers and improvised pockets of local control. I intercepted a shortwave relay between 3 operators in Kansas, each running localized repeater networks. They were coordinating resource drops between small towns still powered by backup grids. The conversation was tense. 2 of their sites had already been raided. They were talking about setting up armed checkpoints, rationing well water, deciding who gets access, and whether to accept refugees from Missouri. This is how it begins. Not with mushroom clouds, but with the slow collapse of trust. Scarcity rewires people. When the law disappears, survival becomes tribal. Who gets medicine? Who gets light? Who gets to speak into the radio? And who's silenced forever? The lack of any official government transmission has turned the airwaves into rumor mills. Dozens of voices, half-finished stories, conflicting reports, panic layered over static. Some are trying to help. Others, maybe not. I've heard claims that the US launched a second strike on Iran. Another said Russian submarines surfaced off Alaska. One even claimed Florida's underwater. None of these are confirmed. Ignore anything without a verifiable source. Stick to what you can confirm with your own senses. Observe the sky, smell the air, track the wind. Trust the quiet signals, the real ones, not the loudest. There's one more thing. Something I picked up this morning that I can't explain. A low-frequency transmission, barely audible, repeating in the 400 kilohertz band, just above the AM spectrum. It isn't language. It isn't Morse. It's a pulse. Too steady to be random static, but not matching any known beacon signature. 1 second burst, 4-second gap, repeat. I've logged the pattern. I'll keep monitoring it. Whatever it is, it's consistent. And that consistency means intent. I triangulated the new signal's direction, due southeast. The bearing lines up somewhere between Colorado Springs and Amarillo. It could be a repeater malfunction, maybe an underground array failing, but something about it feels deliberate. The signal carries no modulation, no voice, no tone, just a raw, almost digital pulse without content. I'm going to keep tracking it through the night. If it changes frequency or pattern, I'll report immediately. If you're in that region, pay attention. If you pick it up on your band, record it. Log the time, signal strength, and any drift you notice. I don't think it's a standard military beacon. And if it is, it's not one I've ever heard before. Now let's talk about burn patterns. So far, confirmed U.S. impact zones include San Diego, naval base targeted, civilian casualties already in the tens of thousands. Strategic airstrike confirmed on Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, a command target hit during the night. Fallout plumes from that detonation are expected to drift east over Iowa and western Illinois by morning. Norfolk, Virginia remains unconfirmed, but the satellite blind spots and total signal loss point toward a strike. Seattle and Portland show no verified detonations, but both metropolitan areas are silent. No radio traffic, no emergency frequencies, either under full evacuation or already dark. Remember this, not all targets were population centers. Command and control sites, radar facilities, naval hubs, and relay towers were primary objectives, but so many of those sit near major cities. Even when the intent was strategic, the collateral toll is staggering. Reports from the northern border confirm early waves of refugees crossing into Canada. A ham operator out of Manitoba described nearly 200 vehicles stalled along a back highway. No official checkpoints, no aid stations. Just people sitting in cars, waiting, hoping the radiation doesn't drift north. The border guards he spoke with were unarmed, confused, working from paper maps. They said they weren't told anything, just saw the flashes and then silence on their comms. There's an eerie stillness in the air tonight. Normally, this time of year, I'd hear deer moving through the brush or crows fighting over roadkill in the valley. But now, nothing. Just the wind sighing through the trees, the soft groan of the antenna mount when it shifts, and the steady hum of the inverter running off batteries. The ash has started falling heavier. Not a solid descent, more like a drift, lazy and uneven, as if the sky can't decide whether to release it. I sealed the last vent hatch 2 hours ago. If you're still running any intake from outside air, shut it down now. Switch to filtered recirculation. If you don't have a formal filtration system, layer cloth, wet if possible, and keep it close to the floor. The radioactive dust settles low in still air. The next challenge isn't just physical survival, it's psychological. Already, voices are rising, broadcasts twisting fear into division. I caught a transmission out of Utah claiming the strikes were divine punishment, and another from Texas calling for cleansing zones. That kind of talk spreads like fire. Panic wants a target, and people desperate for meaning will turn on anyone different. Please, keep your humanity. It's the only thing that'll matter in the long run, if any of us make it through this. I'll continue broadcasting every 4 to 6 hours depending on generator load and signal clarity. I'll be listening continuously on 7.400 megahertz. If you have verifiable information, anything real, anything useful, I'll rebroadcast it. Keep your power output low, your transmissions brief, and stay off open bands unless you're ready for someone to triangulate your position. I'll return before sunset. This isn't over, not even close. The silence didn't happen all at once. It came in layers. First, the lag, those tiny delays in transmissions that you'd normally blame on scatter or atmospheric drift. Then came the noise. Frequencies once clean began filling with hiss, echo, bursts of distortion. After that came the gaps, entire blocks of spectrum going dead. No emergency chatter, no news relays, not even amateurs trying to break through the static. By mid-morning, entire cities had vanished from the air. At first, I thought it might be jamming. That was the old assumption, Cold War thinking. You expected signal blockouts during a crisis, but this wasn't tactical suppression. This was annihilation. One by one, they went silent. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Tokyo, London, Delhi, Istanbul, Sao Paulo. Not through signal interference or grid collapse, but through direct impact. I got partial confirmation from a relay operator near Edmonton. He runs an automated capture board that loops satellite bands for redundancy. The last 10 seconds before the U.S. communication array went dark recorded a rapid sequence of missile launches from 3 distinct vectors: ocean, land, and low orbit. These weren't tactical strikes. They were terminal, designed to erase everything. New York took at least 2 warheads. One directly over Manhattan. The second detonated somewhere in northern New Jersey. Preliminary estimates, 8 million dead in the first 3 minutes. Secondary fires spread as far north as Westchester. The entire infrastructure burned. Amateur readings from Syracuse confirm an active radiation bloom. No formal broadcast from the city has been heard since. Los Angeles disappeared even faster. The last signal came from a man running a mobile ham rig near Lancaster. His voice was shaking, but clear. He said the sky flashed to the south, like a second sun. Then came the pressure wave, shattered every window where he stood, 70 miles out. And then nothing. The Los Angeles emergency broadcast station never even activated. It was vaporized before the alert system could trigger. And then, Chicago. That one hurts. I was born there, grew up near Logan Square. Haven't lived there in 20 years, but it's still home somewhere inside me. I caught a faint transmission from a private shortwave station west of the city. The operator, an older man, said the downtown core lit up in seconds. One detonation along the lakefront. another inland, possibly targeting O'Hare or the reserve command node on the west side. He didn't finish his report. His voice stopped mid-sentence, then static. Some cities didn't take direct hits, but still fell by proximity. Boston may have avoided ground zero, but fallout from strikes on naval assets to the south is already drifting over the metro area. Hospitals are collapsing, power's gone, no comms, no outside aid. Medical staff are improvising with gauze, bottled water, and fading light. Tokyo, confirmed gone. The initial flash registered on multiple defense satellites before their own systems went silent. Japan's early warning network managed to issue a single alert. 3 words in Japanese. Kaku kogeki kakunin. Nuclear attack confirmed. Then it cut. Nothing from Hokkaido, Osaka, or Nagano in 14 hours. London's status remains uncertain. All Royal Navy command frequencies are dead. Heathrow showed mass thermal traffic 2 hours before the presumed strike, which suggests at least a partial evacuation, but no signals have returned since. The Home Office, the UK's fallback command center, hasn't transmitted in over a day. No confirmation yet on whether Downing Street survived. But based on the strike patterns we've tracked so far, it's unlikely. In India, Delhi was hit first, then Mumbai. I managed to intercept a fractured civilian relay from the outskirts of Jaipur. The woman on the other end spoke with a quiet steadiness that didn't match the chaos behind her. Her English was broken, but her words were unmistakable. Flashes came from the horizon. All people are sick now, eyes are burned. We cannot go to city. The animals are running toward the hills. She paused, started to cry once, then apologized. I'm sorry to talk long. Please tell others what we see. And I am. I'm telling you. Telling anyone still listening. The world's great cities, the ones printed on flight boards, sung about in songs, worn on t-shirts, are either gone or dying. Their people either dead or changing into something else beneath the radiation and the dust and the heat. There's no undoing this. The chain reaction is complete. And yet, despite the collapse, something strange is taking shape. I've begun hearing whispers of new coalitions. Fragile, desperate, but real. Russia and Iran, once bitter rivals, appear to have reached a ceasefire, dividing what's left of their supply routes across the Caucasus. India and Australia have exchanged encrypted humanitarian signals through surviving submarine relays. Even fractured parts of Europe, Poland, Finland, remnants of the old Balkans, are reportedly coordinating defensive zones by landline, operating from underground command bunkers. These aren't alliances in any formal sense. They're pacts of necessity. You don't shoot me, I don't shoot you. You share food, I don't raid your convoy. The kind of understandings born only when the world is ash and the next winter promises no warmth. So far, I've tracked 3 distinct transmissions. One from Hungary, the remnants of its government offering energy in exchange for grain. One from Argentina, attempting to establish a southern port relay for whatever's left of the International Red Cross. And one from Nigeria, calling for neutral ground status in the West African corridor. I don't know how many are hearing these or how long they'll hold, but the fact that anyone's still trying, that matters. What's completely gone is global coordination. The United Nations ceased all transmissions 14 hours ago. Their Geneva and New York branches are presumed destroyed. NATO is silent. The final automated message from Brussels simply read, NATO strategic integration has failed. National command initiatives in effect. Translation: every nation, every survivor, is on their own now. I'm still hearing from individuals, not governments, not soldiers, just people. A man in Wyoming says he's built a working water filtration rig and will share clean water if someone can bring antibiotics. A woman in rural Oregon says she has chickens, but no ammunition. A kid in Nebraska says his father is dying, and he's learning how to use the radio by reading the manual. These are the new voices of the world after the fall. And then, there's the silence. Some cities didn't even send a final signal. They just vanished. No flash, no scream, no farewell, just gone, like someone unplugged their soul. Atlanta, Jakarta, Berlin, Cairo, even Tel Aviv, always the last to go quiet during any war, has been silent for 12 hours now. It's that silence that unnerves me the most. I keep thinking about how quickly it all fell apart. The global system we lived under for a century, the web of trade, conflict, diplomacy, all shattered in hours. Now we're just voices in the dark, trying to speak across the void, hoping someone hears us through the roar of radiation, collapsing cities, and the hiss of falling ash. It's almost evening here. The air's colder now, frost forming on the window edges where it didn't exist this morning. It's not winter yet, but it feels like it's coming early. Maybe a nuclear winter, or maybe just the kind where there's no more fuel for the power stations and dust blocks the sun. I'll stay on the air. I'll record. I'll relay. I'll keep speaking until my breath runs out or the batteries die. It's just past 7 in the evening now, and the wind outside has turned hollow. Sharp gusts scraping across the walls like fingers searching for a way in. Temperatures down to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, unseasonably low for this part of Montana. I walked the southern perimeter before dusk, checked the vents, the antenna line, the storage tank, found frost clinging to the exposed pipes behind the cabin. Earliest I've ever seen it freeze here. Radiation warps the atmosphere, makes the sky forget how to behave. While the cold creeps in, the war continues. I spent the afternoon tuning through scrambled military frequencies, catching fragments of encrypted bursts from the few satellites still transmitting, watching what's left of the Starlink feed flicker in and out. If you still have a working terminal, use it. Share what you see. Soon, even the eyes in the sky will blink out. Here's what I can confirm. Naval warfare has returned, but not in the old sense. Not carrier fleets in formation. Now it's fought in silence, in shadows. Submarines rule the oceans. Most of the U.S. surface fleet was destroyed or scattered in the Pacific. I caught a signal from a civilian deckhand on a research vessel near the Aleutian Islands. He saw 2 American destroyers fire eastward, then vanish beneath the water 10 minutes later. He said they ran dark and low, trying to evade Chinese drone scans. No one knows where they were headed, but someone out there is still fighting. China's submarine fleet is active in the Indian Ocean. Operators from Australia and the Philippines have confirmed stealth vessels moving through oil channels, silent, fast. The Chinese aren't defending anymore. They're launching. Floating sea platforms have been sighted near the Bay of Bengal and east of Madagascar. It's no longer tactical. It's strategic, global payloads. The destruction isn't contained anymore. It's planetary. And Russia, their navy surfaced near Norway, not to strike ports, but to cut the cables. 2 days ago, I mentioned missing bandwidth, strange latency across the network. That wasn't interference. They've started severing the undersea cables. Reports confirm fiber lines cut between Greenland and Ireland, and again from the Arctic shelf down toward Iceland. Data isn't just disappearing anymore. It's being erased at the root. The backbone of global communication was never wireless. It was glass. Miles of optical fiber stretching silently across the seafloor, unseen and unguarded. It only takes a single submersible and a pair of bolt cutters to silence a continent. Now imagine that. Multiplied tenfold. As if that weren't enough, several oil platforms in the South China Sea and the Gulf of Mexico have been seized. Chinese forces have reportedly taken control of at least 2 deep-sea rigs once owned by international corporations. I intercepted short VHF distress beacons from one of them, rig Delta 49er. The final message was brief and chilling. They're on board. We've locked the core. We're flooding the lower deck. Do not respond. Do not respond. It repeated 3 times, then nothing. That was 22 minutes ago. This isn't random destruction. It's suffocation. The deliberate throttling of modern civilization's arteries. Fuel, fiber, food, firepower. Cut one, the system bleeds. Cut them all, and the system dies. Non-nuclear nations are crumbling under the weight of collapse. Argentina has closed its borders. Kenya declared martial law this morning. Chile has conscripted its police forces into military defense. Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, silent. South Africa's power grid failed overnight. Their emergency coordination hub hasn't responded to any pings for 6 hours. Even nations untouched by direct strikes are tearing themselves apart from within. This is the self-destruction phase, the part where desperation erases order. When food runs out, communication ends, authority fades, and only violence remains standing. Riots are breaking out in cities that haven't even been hit. Zurich, Bangkok, Mexico City, Seoul, hundreds dead, not from bombs, but from chaos, from stampedes, from fires, from walls collapsing under the crush of crowds. I picked up a rooftop transmission from Tel Aviv. We haven't been hit, but it doesn't matter. The people think we have. The panic alone is worse than the weapon. Russia has resumed strikes on NATO-aligned infrastructure left untouched in the first wave. Not capitals, not bases, but the connective tissue that keeps nations alive. Dams, fuel depots, supply bridges. I intercepted a French relay confirming the destruction of the St. Auld refinery and a sabotage event at the Paluel nuclear station. No explosion, just total systems failure. A virus maybe, a pre-programmed worm. Either way, the site is offline, and NATO might as well be too. The alliance was built for deterrence, not reaction. When the first nukes flew, no one knew who was still in charge. Command nodes scattered, protocols jammed, airspace contested. One exhausted operator from Prague summed it up perfectly. We're just acronyms now, not armies. Empty uniforms with no uplink. Europe is unraveling in real time. France is under siege from within. Rural militias are forming. Germany's western power corridor has gone dark, and hundreds of thousands are pouring into Poland, which is barely holding its line. Italy sealed its ports. Scandinavia remains online but cut off, and some of their officials are now negotiating independently with Moscow just to keep fuel shipments moving. The dream of unity, gone in less than a week. Tonight, I made a decision I wasn't ready for. 2 figures appeared near the perimeter fence at dusk. No lights, just voices, quiet and trembling. A man and a woman. He told me they'd been listening to this broadcast for 3 days, triangulating the signal by hand with an old loop antenna. I didn't ask how they crossed the forest line or bypassed the traps. I just opened the gate. They're inside now, in the lower cabin, wrapped in thermal blankets, eyes hollowed by exhaustion. The woman hasn't spoken since they arrived. The man's name is Thomas. Said he used to work for a telecom station before it went offline. He still had a partial satellite uplink, powered by a makeshift solar rig. That's how he accessed fragments of the old NOAA emergency satellite network. From him, I learned what I'd only guessed. The satellites aren't gone. They're flickering, failing, but still alive, still transmitting. Governments have lost access, but private terminals, if manually configured, can still pull low-priority packets. It's like watching the world end through a keyhole. No video, no voice, just pulses of text and numbers. The last heartbeat of a dying system. And it's through that heartbeat we learned about the next wave of strikes. Russia is now targeting industrial sectors. China is focusing on ports. The United States has returned fire, but their coordination is fragmented. Tactical precision traded for blind retaliation. They're striking refineries and fuel depots now, trying to choke supply instead of rack up body counts. But civilians are still dying, by the tens of millions. The last verified death toll was 10 million. That was weeks ago. We could be near 50 by now. Every hour, another city goes dark. Every day, fewer voices answer back. Every transmission feels more like a whisper across a burning field. I used to believe that radio would outlast the world. Not because of sentiment, but because it doesn't depend on the world to work. It doesn't need satellites or passwords or grid power. Just a coil, a current, and a voice. And there are more voices out there. Others like me. Operators, hams, engineers who never stopped believing in the signal. Together, we're building something. Slow, quiet, analog. The grid is dead, but the wave still carries. If you can hear this, stay on the analog bands. My anchor frequency is 7.400 megahertz, but I scan others. Rotate your dials at sunrise and dusk. Those are your best windows for skip propagation. If you've got a signal, share it. If you've got information, transmit it. If you have nothing else, just breathe into the mic, so we know you're still out there. I'll rest for a few hours. Thomas is on watch tonight. He's steady. Tired, but steady. That's all any of us can be now. It's morning now. Cold. The sun broke through a narrow slit in the eastern clouds 20 minutes ago. Dim, reddish, filtered through dust. When I scraped frost from the windowsill, the Geiger counter ticked twice a second. Low-level contamination. Not lethal yet, but rising. Air intakes are sealed. No exterior venting. The turbine's sluggish, probably frost on the blades. But we've got enough battery to last the day. Thomas stayed up through the night, cycling through the bands. Around 3 a.m., he caught something unusual. Satellite pings, not civilian, not broadcast. Low-priority telemetry packets, likely from what used to be a weather monitoring network. Only now, someone's repurposed it. Whoever's controlling the uplink is sending down coded bursts. The packets weren't directed to us. They were meant for a ground station, possibly military, somewhere in western Colorado or Nevada. Most of those old Air Force installations are dark, but these signals were automated, encrypted, and repeated every 23 minutes on a perfect loop. At first glance, they looked like orbital telemetry. Altitude, speed, heading. But the final data block changed slightly with each transmission. When we decoded it, the numbers matched old damage report indexing. That means someone somewhere is still watching from above, and not for weather. These are impact assessments, fallout trajectories, firestorm overlays. The satellites are still functioning, and someone is still issuing commands. Thomas spent the morning cross-referencing those coordinates. The updates confirmed new strikes overnight. Add Madrid, add Seoul, add Riyadh, and possibly Dallas. I didn't want to say that last one. The readings matched too closely. A friend of mine lived there. Sam Greer, former NOAA analyst turned prepper after the pandemic. He stopped answering last night. Every civilian frequency out of central Texas has gone dead. No military fallback either. Either Fort Hood is gone, or it's sealed. At this point, the United States has taken at least 15 direct strategic hits on domestic soil. Many of them precise, deliberate. This isn't war anymore. it's extermination. Coordinated strikes to erase command, cripple infrastructure, and shatter morale. And yet somehow, the country hasn't completely fallen. Not yet. There are still voices, still pockets of signal, still life. A civilian broadcast loop is transmitting out of what used to be Noah's Boulder facility, rerouted through a subterranean fallback relay in Grand Junction. It's automated, but it's current. Every 10 minutes, it updates a list of active population clusters, not safe zones, just places where there's still movement, still light, still signs of survival. The last transmission listed: Missoula, Montana; Cheyenne, Wyoming; Twin Falls, Idaho; Leach, Texas; Charleston, West Virginia, and what's left of Boise. If you're within 50 miles of any of those places, and you have shelter, stay put. Don't go searching for aid camps. They're gone. Most were bombed, overrun, or abandoned. Best case, you find clean air, stable food, and people who don't shoot on sight. That's the standard now. Anything more is a fantasy. I've heard stories, some true, some not, about people being lured into safe zones that turned out to be traps. Armed factions hijacking old frequencies. Fake Red Cross calls. Predators pretending to be saviors. The best defense you have is verification. If a signal doesn't include real data, coordinates, timestamps, identifiers, ignore it. A few hours ago, something unusual broke through on a high-frequency band I rarely monitor. The signal wasn't American. I think it was Norwegian. A woman's voice, English spoken with a strong Scandinavian accent. She claimed to represent an organization calling itself the Northern Continental Assembly. According to her, parts of Scandinavia, the Baltic states, and Finland have formed independent coordination networks. Not NATO, not UN, not remnants of old governments. Just regional boards trying to stabilize what's left. She invited technically skilled survivors to reach them through a burst transmission uplink. She provided coordinates. I can't confirm the authenticity, but the message was sophisticated, encrypted military grade, clean signal, strong and consistent, transmitted across multiple bands. That's not a basement operation. Whoever sent it still has access to functioning infrastructure. But for most of you listening, that doesn't change the day-to-day. Food, water, shelter, and now, warmth. The nuclear winter is coming early. Last night's temperature drop wasn't a fluke. Atmospheric pressure maps, what's left of them, show a major dip across the Western Hemisphere. Dust is climbing past 40,000 feet. Solar radiation is bouncing off the ash layer. Whatever crops survived in the Midwest are finished. Canada's wheat belt will follow next. After that, no one eats without stockpiles or violence. It's already starting. Thomas picked up a relay from Kansas City earlier. Weak, but decipherable. A man's voice said, "We're sealing the perimeter. All non-verified personnel will be turned away. Food is internal only. Do not approach the fence line." They weren't soldiers, not police, just people defending what they have left. The barter systems are collapsing. It's tribe or nothing now. That's the other transformation I'm seeing. Tribalism. Makeshift flags, local oaths, improvised identities. The national bond is dissolving. People are clinging to proximity, not ideology. When that happens, blood becomes the only currency that matters. Through it all, I remind myself why I keep the transmitter running, why I still speak, why I haven't gone silent like so many others. Someone has to tell the truth, not just about where the bombs hit, but about how we fell apart. Not because of warheads, not because of orders, but because the world we built couldn't survive the first clean cut. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Radio outlives systems. It doesn't need a government, a server, or a login. It needs one voice, one circuit, one antenna, and one reason to keep talking. This is that reason. Tonight, I'll be setting up an auxiliary transmitter powered by the backup turbine system. The main feed will continue on 7.400 megahertz, but I'll also broadcast across 4 rotating frequencies through the night, timed to UTC. If you're scanning, you'll find me. And if you can't, someone will. Maybe on a cracked tape deck, maybe beside a campfire, maybe across a frozen lake carried by a strip of copper wire and hope. It's noon now, or near it. The light outside barely qualifies as light. The sky hangs low and uniform, an unbroken gray lid pressing down over what's left of the world. When the wind moves, it lifts a veil of fine ash that coats everything. There's no scent anymore, no pine, no frost, no air, just dust, cold, irradiated dust. I tried restarting the turbine this morning. The blades are seizing again. Ash buildup in the bearings. If I don't clear it soon, I'll lose the whole rig. Battery output dropped 18% overnight, even with 2-hour load cycles. I've shut off all interior lights except in the comms bay. Thomas and Sophia are helping ration power. I never planned to share this space, but necessity rewrites every rule. We're managing. The ash is interfering with the signal now. It's clinging to guy wires, coating the antenna housings. I think the particulate density is scattering higher frequencies. VHF clarity is degraded. HF still holds, but the range is shrinking. Anything above 20 megahertz is unreadable unless boosted. And it's not just here. Operators across every surviving band are reporting the same. Static, dropout, interference. Even shielded rigs are failing. The ash gets everywhere. Ports, vents, joints. It draws moisture, conducts electricity, corrupts circuits. Equipment built to withstand solar storms and EMPs is dying. Not from impact, but from contamination. And that's still not the worst of it. The last functioning repeater in Quebec went silent this morning. No warning, no burst, just dead air. Canada's eastern grid is gone. Whatever remains is running on diesel generators and scavenged batteries, if their crews haven't stripped them already. Further south, reports confirm the U.S. Northeast has entered a total blackout. All known urban centers between Philadelphia and Boston are gone, either unpowered, evacuated, or burning. New York is no more. Connecticut lies underwater from a dam rupture. And in New Jersey, a local militia has allegedly seized an old FEMA depot, using stolen military radios to broadcast their own directives, warning anyone who tries to cross into their self-declared resource protection corridor. I didn't believe it at first, but I traced the transmission. Encrypted, yes, but shallow. Real. No FEMA, no guard, no chain of command. Just armed locals writing their own orders. The world is fracturing faster than anyone imagined. Last night I caught a faint relay, possibly from Eastern Europe. Czech Republic, maybe. A woman's voice, distant, strained, reading coordinates. Twice. Then static. Thomas believes she was reciting border positions, new ones. Not diplomatic lines, but military. She used the phrase, occupation stabilization zone. I don't like what that implies. Rumors say parts of eastern Germany have been taken, not by Russian regulars, not by local rebels, but by something in between. Wagner remnants, Belarusian units, operating under false flags. They move in quietly, seize infrastructure, power stations, water plants, and stay, post notices, process civilians. This is what conquest looks like now, not with parades or speeches, not with tanks in city squares. It happens in silence, in occupation, in the repurposing of ruins. More satellite transmissions came through overnight. scrambled, staggered, low-priority bursts. We intercepted one with partial imaging data, thermal overlays, timestamps, location pings. It showed 4 massive, persistent heat signatures, all ocean-based. 2 in the Atlantic, 1 in the Indian Ocean, 1 near the Bering Strait. They're either active missile submarines or the remains of destroyed naval vessels still venting reactor heat. Either way, someone up there is still watching. Around 2 in the morning, we caught a pure voice transmission. No encryption, no ID tag. Male, older, calm. He said he was speaking from the southern Appalachians near Asheville, representing a surviving branch of the original continuity of government program. He didn't call it the U.S. government. He said, "We are all that remains of what once connected this country. We are not here to rule. We are here to record. And when the ash settles, we will rebuild by remembering." Then he gave coordinates. A dead drop in Kentucky. I won't repeat them here. Too risky. But the encryption key he used, Conop Bluebird, that's not public knowledge. So maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe someone made it out. I don't have time for maybe. Power's dropping again. Ash buildup in the intake, the turbines choking. We've switched to manual air cycling 3 times today. Every rotation drains more voltage from the core. Sophia's worried about the cooler. It's not holding temperature. We've started wrapping perishables in blankets, pushing them against the interior wall to keep the chill. It's not much, but it buys us a little time. We've also started coughing, fatigue, nausea. Not from radiation. The counters are stable. It's something else. Maybe stress. Maybe fungal spores from the ash. If it's airborne, we'll all feel it soon. Despite that, we're expanding our reach. Last night, Sophia and I rewired the auxiliary transmitter, rerouting power through the remaining solar array. We now have a backup broadcast on 6.633 megahertz at 25 watts. It's not much, but it should carry about 400 miles during skip windows. If you're listening, tune the low bands after dusk. Listen for 3 short beeps followed by the phrase, "listening still." That's us. If you hear it, respond with 5 clicks. Pause. 5 more. No voice needed. Just prove you're there. We've logged 6 confirmed responses so far. Utah, North Dakota, somewhere near Thunder Bay, and a few untraceable. They're real, and they mean we're not alone. But time is short. The systems are failing piece by piece. The world isn't ending in one explosion. It's disintegrating slowly, painfully, like a machine run too long and too hot. Now the belts are snapping, the circuits are melting, and the ash is getting into everything. Still, we're here. And I'll keep speaking until the line goes cold. We lost the sky at dawn. Not clouds, visibility. The upper atmosphere is so saturated with dust and debris that not even satellite bands can pierce it. Every geostationary relay we pinged came back fractured. The low-orbit network is collapsing fast. Direct strikes, debris collisions, take your pick. We're blind now. We can only see as far as the next ridge. At 0400, the NOAA uplink went dead. No heartbeat, no packet, nothing. Whether the satellite failed or the ground relay finally ran out of power, we'll never know. The horizon now ends at the treetops. We are alone. Shortwave still works, though barely. The analog rigs carry farther than anything digital now. The skip is unstable, the ionosphere's twisted by ash, but it's enough. That's how we caught one last military bird before it died. Around midnight, a weak signal came through on 8.425 megahertz, encrypted fallback from a damaged weather satellite repurposed for observation. It repeated 3 times, then cut mid-loop. The metadata told the story. It was monitoring the Ohio River Valley, between Louisville and Cincinnati. Thermal tags confirmed multiple high-temperature anomalies far larger than conventional fires. Another strike, another wound. Even now, they're still hitting us. There's no logic left, no strategy. The early war was surgical, command nodes, refineries, grids. Now it's random, psychological. They're not destroying what we use. They're destroying our will to rebuild. Sophia asked me this morning if there's a moment when civilization truly ends. Not metaphorically, literally, when we'd know it's over. I didn't answer then, but I think I know now. It's when the rescue signals stop, when even the lies go silent, when no one pretends help is coming anymore. That's today. No one's coming. No one's left. We're not cut off completely, not yet. I rebooted one of the low-voltage rigs through the auxiliary inverter. The power's weak, but enough to keep us running daylight to dusk. We're transmitting on 7.400 megahertz from 0800 to 1900 hours. After that, we switch to 6.633 on low power. If you hear this, click twice. If you can't respond, just listen. Since yesterday, we've picked up 2 new signals, one from Alaska, one from deep northern New Mexico. The Alaska signal was faint. The operator identified as Delta Kilo 6, part of a maritime research crew sheltering in an abandoned NORPAC weather station west of Kodiak. He said, "The station's intact, but we're out of rations. We can't filter the ash. There are only 4 of us left. Everyone else went outside. They didn't come back." The New Mexico signal was stronger. He called his location Zone 5. It's not a name I recognize. The young man from Zone 5, the one who sounded nervous, said their camp was inside an old missile silo, turned into a shelter. His words still echo in my head. We thought we were lucky. Then the sickness came. He didn't describe much, but what he did was enough. Red eyes, burning skin, talking to people who weren't there. They tried isolating them, then the guards left. Locked doors. Silence. I don't know what's happening there. Radiation, spores, madness. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it spreads. I thought about answering. I didn't. You start to measure every choice by what it costs: power, heat, light, hope. Sometimes silence is the only mercy left. We're still keeping logs. Thomas runs second watch. Sophia tracks the water. We boil everything now. No filters left, just fire and cloth. I rewired the heater to run in 10-minute bursts. Enough to thaw our hands, not enough to drain the diesel. This place was built for 1 person, not 3. But here we are, 6 days since the last strike in this region. That's victory now. The ash is thicker. You can taste it even inside. Filters clog every 3 hours. The turbine's jammed again. I'll climb the tower tonight to clean the fins. 1 slip and the snow-soft ash will bury me before I even feel cold. We've sealed off the north wing. Too much power draw. We sleep in the comms bay side by side. It's not how I imagined surviving the end of the world. But it's real. If you're hearing this, know this much. There's no cavalry, no rescue op, no drone corridor. No signals came through last night. Not a whisper, not a skip, not even the static hum of a dying repeater. For the first time since the first bombs, the bands were dead silent. Not interference, not ash, not decay. Just gone. I listened until 3 a.m. Thomas came in around 4, opened the stove vent, said nothing. Sophia slept under the blanket. We've learned not to wake each other for silence. After 20 hours without a signal, I did something I hadn't done since the beginning. I prepared the final tape. A summary, a list of frequencies, and 1 line. This is what was left. I didn't play it. Not yet. At 6:43 a.m., a pulse hit the lower band. 1-second bursts, 10-second gaps, 4 times in sequence. Then a voice. This is Echo Ridge Relay 5. We heard you. We have fuel and equipment. Request rendezvous confirmation. Then nothing. No coordinates, no return frequency. I answered, twice, boosted to max power. No reply. Sophia thinks it's bait. Could be, like the Nevada safe corridor that lured dozens into the irradiated pass. But this one was different. No promises, no lies. Just fuel, equipment. Someone who'd been listening. We'll keep monitoring. For now, I'm still here, still transmitting. Thomas dismantled the old tower this morning. Ash corroded the shielding beyond repair. We stripped the copper, rigged a new line through the trees. Range is worse, but the static floor dropped. He climbed the tree himself. Nearly fell once. Sophia panicked watching, but he made it. We're a crew now, the last one maybe. Outside, the air falls in waves. The ash sticks to branches, hardens, breaks apart like gray snow. The ground isn't soil anymore, just powder over death. Reports from what's left of the Midwest and Europe confirm it. Soils chemically ruined, no crops, no harvest. Only cans, cellars, or worse. A faint voice from Yakutsk whispered through the static 2 nights ago. We've started eating what was stored for animals. We'll eat the hay next. Then silence. Time doesn't move anymore. Days are battery cycles. Nights are static. But after the pulse this morning, after that voice, Sophia smiled, a real one. Thomas checked the logs twice. He's planning something. Hope is dangerous. But it's still human, and so I'll keep talking until this transmitter dies. Or I do, because this isn't the end. It's the end of the beginning. This will be my final broadcast. Not because I'm out of power, not because I'm dying. I'm still here, breathing. The rig's corroded, patched, running hot. But it works. And this morning, at 0500 hours, I received something worth chasing. The signal came through clean, encrypted, layered, perfect. Not amateur, military grade. I decrypted it using my last working chain. The message read, Echo Ridge confirmed. You are authorized. Coordinates 40.215.87. Resupply underway. Departure window T-minus 24 hours. One transmission only. No response expected. That's near Trinidad, Colorado. Raton Pass. Cold, dangerous, reachable. We sat in silence. Thomas rubbing ash from his gloves. Sophia staring at the floor. Then she asked, is it worth it? Maybe it's bait. Maybe it's a drone scan. Maybe it's a dead station looping its last echo. But it felt different, clean, deliberate, not begging, not promising, just real. So we're going. We've packed what matters. The portable rig, the last inverter, 10 food packs, water tabs, 2 blankets, 1 flashlight, and my first receiver, the old handheld with the cracked dial. It still works. If you're hearing this, it means I've triggered the final loop. The transmitter will run until the batteries die. Maybe days, maybe weeks. All our logs are uploaded. Frequencies, coordinates, fallout drifts, survivor reports. Everything. You'll hear these messages repeating every hour on 7.400 megahertz, followed by 10 minutes of silence. Then the system will rotate through 5 backup bands until the power's gone. If no one hears this, that's okay. It still happened. We were here, we tried. We stayed human even when the world didn't. If you're somewhere out there, another bunker, another ruin, keep talking, keep recording. Because it's not the bombs that end us, it's the forgetting.